Okay, this is our lesson on symbolism, and to do that we're going to use this book called The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson. Symbolism is a literary device that authors use, and as readers we want to try to be aware of when they're using the symbolism. And so The Other Side is a perfect example of that. It's when an object is used to represent another idea. For instance, in class, we went over the idea that if you see a dove, oftentimes that symbolizes the idea of peace, or a heart symbolizes the idea of love. And so with literary devices, it's going to be a little more complex than that, but you'll see it here in The Other Side. That summer, the fence that stretched through our town seemed bigger. We lived in a yellow house on one side of it. White people lived on the other. And Mama said, "Don't climb over that fence when you play." She said it wasn't safe. That summer, there was a girl who wore a pink sweater. Each morning, she climbed up on the fence and stared over at our side. Sometimes I stared back. She never sat on that fence with anybody. That girl didn't. Once, when we were jumping rope, she asked if she could play, and my friend Sandra said no without even asking the rest of us. I don't know what I would have said. Maybe yes, maybe no. That summer, everyone was on the other side of that fence. That summer, everyone and everything on the other side of that fence seemed far away. When I asked my mama why, she said, "Because that's the way things have always been." Sometimes when me and Mama went into town, I saw that girl with her mama. She looked sad sometimes. That girl did. "Don't stare," my mama said. "It's not polite." Now we can start using our signpost of again and again to help us get to the object that is symbolism. My guess is you're probably already there. But what object has come up on every page so far? Let's see if that continues for the most part. It rained a lot that summer. On rainy days, that girl sat on the fence in a raincoat. She let herself get all wet and acted like she didn't even care. Sometimes I saw her dancing around in puddles, splashing and laughing. Okay, so the again and again showed up again. It's the fence, and remember our anchor question is, why does this object or this idea keep coming up? Why is the author repeating the idea of the fence? So pause here and just kind of think about how you might answer that question. "Mama wouldn't let me go out in the rain. That's why I bought you rainy day toys," my mama said. "You stay inside here where it's warm and safe and dry." But every time it rained, I looked for that girl, and I always found her somewhere near the fence. Someplace in the middle of the summer, the rain stopped. When I walked outside, the grass was damp, and the sun was already high up in the sky, and I stood there with my hands up in the air. I felt brave that day. I felt free. I got close to the fence, and that girl asked me my name. "Clover," I said. "My name's Annie," she said. "Annie Paul. I live over yonder," she said, "by where you see the laundry. That's my blouse hanging on the line." She smiled then. She had a pretty smile. That summer, me and Annie sat together on that fence, and when Sandra and them looked at me funny, I just made believe I didn't care. Some mornings my mama watched us. I waited for her to tell me to get down from that fence before I break my neck or something, but she never did. "I see you made a new friend," she said one morning, and I nodded and Mama smiled. That summer, me and Annie sat on that fence and watched the whole wide world around us. One day, Sandra and them were jumping rope near the fence, and we asked if we could play. "I don't care," Sandra said. And when we jumped, Sandra and me were partners, the way we used to be. When we were too tired to jump anymore, we sat up on the fence, all of us in a long line. "Someday, somebody's going to come along and knock this old fence down," Annie said, and I nodded. "Yeah," I said, "someday." Okay, so now that we've noticed what was repeated again and again, I would guess that you noticed that it was the fence. So if the fence is our object, we need to think about what idea could that fence symbolize? And after we talked in our groups in class, many of them came up with the idea that it symbolizes segregation. Now, we're going to use text and background knowledge to kind of support that idea. First of all, just the text, we've clearly got pictures of sort of a racial divide, right? Because we see the blacks and the whites, and it divides the town, kind of like Two Mills in Maniac McGee. So we have that racial divide. That text is going to support it there. We have the pictures of the girls. We also have the sort of the comments that in the text that support the idea of segregation, that it divided the town, and that summer everyone and everything on the other side of the fence seemed far away. That phrase, they're just so separate. So we've got everything seems far away. Okay, and then we also have our background knowledge. We know of the civil rights, and we know of segregation, right? Was like a divide. It's not going to fit. Okay. All right, so let's take a look here. Then I love the last line. As those girls get closer and closer to the fence, and then they even all jump rope together, we have that last line. Someday somebody's going to come along and knock this old fence down. Well, let's take our symbolism a step further. If the fence equals segregation, and the girls mention the fence being knocked down, it says someday someone is going to come along. We brainstormed in class, who is that, segregation, who is that person, or who could those people be that came and knocked down the fence? We had people say that it might have started with Abe Lincoln. We had Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, and I'm sure you could think of some others that were important to the civil rights movement or before. So now your question in Maniac McGee is going to be about Cobble's Knot and what it symbolizes. So you're going to think of Cobble's Knot, go back in the text, see how it's described, how Jerry Spinelli uses it, and what happens with the characters surrounding it, and then what idea could it represent. So that's what your job is.